quorum. I want to thank all of you in the audience for coming out tonight, braving the weather, the snow, and the rain. I know you could be home watching American Idol, and you're here instead. So tonight's format was conceived by the business manager, Carl Nelson. Carl came up with this idea. It's really the first time we've done it. And it's a win-win situation for the school committee. If it's a success, we'll take full credit for it. If it's a failure, we'll blame Carl. So I'm not sure if Carl's coming up with any more new ideas. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the school committee who are here tonight. Vice Chairman is Steve Van Beaver, longtime member Maureen Barker, and the newest member of the school committee, Nicole Davis, is here as well. I'd also like to take time to introduce the people that are going to be providing the act as the panelists tonight. To my left is Wayne Hardacre, Director of Buildings and Grounds. Christine Danju, who is the Director of Pupil Personnel Services. Dick Hodges, who is the principal of the middle school. John Bernard, who is the principal of North Reading High School. Bill Lassise, who is the principal of the middle school. Thea Katsos, principal of the Hood School. Sean Colleen, who is principal of the Bachelor School. And last but not least, Pam Bowden, who is the Director of Curriculum and Technology. Okay? So those are the people that are going to be here tonight to answer some questions and provide some information regarding the budget. I'd also like to introduce Cal Nelson, our business manager and the superintendent of schools. Last but not least. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give the administrative team the opportunity to express to the school committee and, more importantly perhaps, to the audience and to the public their concerns, their needs, their wants for the fiscal 2005 budget process. We are going to ask them to do that in a format whereby I'm going to ask them some questions and they're going to try to provide answers, and those answers are going to be consistent with the budget goals that the school committee has established earlier this year. At the end of the question and answer period with the panelists, we are then going to open it up to the audience. We're going to allow them to ask any questions that they want of any one of the members, or if the audience wants, they can make some comments, give us some feedback. Whatever they feel is on their mind related to the budget, they're going to have an opportunity to say that. The budget goals, and I'm going to quickly go over these. We have 5 budget goals that we established earlier this year, and again, we're going to ask questions that are going to be consistent with those goals. The first goal is to restore educational services in accordance with the standards of the North Reading school system. The second is to implement the next phase of the strategic plan. The third is to provide necessary services to students, staff, parents, and the community. And the fourth, maintain commitment to the school building needs plan. And number 5, to review all potential revenue sources. Now at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Troughton for just a couple of minutes. He's going to expand a little bit, not only on those goals, but he's going to talk a little bit about the theme that the school committee has established for the budget process going forward for this year and hopefully the next couple of years. Dr. Troughton?
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome everyone to our forum tonight. As Mr. Venezia said, the school committee has outlined 5 goals for the upcoming year in terms of the budget. But I'd like to take a few minutes and delve into those goals around 3 different themes that we're trying to build a budget, and we're seeking input from you, the audience, and the community around these themes. And these 3 themes deal with cuts and compliance issues and competencies. Essentially what we're trying to do is to restore cuts that have been taking place here in our schools over the last several years in terms of programs, staff, and services. And secondly, we'll be looking at compliance issues, and thirdly, we'll be looking at competencies. So if we look at cuts, we can see that over the last 3 or 4 years, the North Reading Public Schools has sustained a number of reductions in staff. We have reduced the number of elementary sections, which has resulted in increases in class size. We have reduced our physical education program, the amount of time that children have physical education. We've reduced our music program, primarily at the elementary school. We've reduced our counseling staff, both at the high school level as well as at the elementary level. We've reduced our support to the computer labs in terms of paraprofessionals, and a series of other support programs, namely high school secretary position, curriculum office secretary position. The list goes on and on. Actually, I have a slide here which I think you'll find interesting in terms of the enrollment which shows the enrollment for the last 4 years. If you go back to the year 2000, and you see that our enrollment with 2,479 students, and you carry that out to where we project to be next year at 2,727 students, about 250 students. Basically a 10% growth in enrollment here in our schools since the year 2000. When you compare that to the number of teachers who are working with children every day, you see in the year 2000 that we had approximately 174 teachers, and this year we have 174 teachers. You can see in the last 2 years we were able to add some staff, but then because of the budget problems, we've had to pull back. So the question before us tonight, and we'll be hearing more from the administrative staff, is how will we restore the cuts that we've made in this district, and how will we move forward? The second theme deals with compliance issues. And when I'm talking about compliance issues, I'm talking about those external measures for education, for the quality of education. And as you know, schools are under incredible accountability to be sure that all students are successful. So we have a number of measures that will tell us how we're doing as a school system, that will set standards for us. Right at the top, our recent high school accreditation report. This is something that's done every 10 years. We completed that accreditation last May. And while we received notification of continued accreditation, the accrediting association, the New England Association, or NEASC, has indicated to us that unless as a district and as a school we provide additional resources, there is a very strong possibility that the high school will be placed on warning on those two standards, namely school and community resources. We also completed recently a Department of Education scheduled special education audit. And again, this audit made very clear recommendations to North Reading in terms of staffing and caseload for counseling and speech and so forth, and also said that we needed to provide appropriate staffing to implement inclusion. We had several other standards that we were audited against. The Department of Ed Civil Rights audit indicated that we had accessibility issues. This is dealing with facilities. And while we continue to deal with facilities here in North Reading, it still stands that we're not in full compliance. Certainly in the area of technology, the Department of Ed technology standards demonstrates that North Reading, whether it's computer access for students or staff, or computer support, people who help students and teachers, we're falling behind. We do not meet those standards. School library standards, because we only have one certified librarian in the entire district, we do not have access at our middle school and elementary school to online services and other research capabilities, access to grants and so forth. These standards are set up by the Massachusetts and National School Library. No Child Left Behind, certainly it is right on the forefront of the political debate in this country. However, it's very clear to all schools that all children must demonstrate proficiency in reading and math within the next 10 years. And coupled with the fact that our support in Title I grant money has been removed, as well as MCAS remediation money, this puts our students in jeopardy. Time and learning, we'll be hearing about high school electives tonight in terms of the ability or inability to have all students achieve the courses that they select. We are also concerned about our elementary library time as not qualifying for time and learning, as well as the middle school support time. Lastly, we are not in compliance with high school standards for guidance. Our student to guidance counselor ratio is much higher than it should be, and that has implications in terms of students and their college admissions or their future plans. And lastly, our own North Reading teacher contract has language in it that says that classes should not or will not be over 30, and we clearly are not in compliance at that in a number of cases, particularly in our high school. So we need to hear about those compliance issues from the administrative team. Lastly, the third theme is built around competencies, and I believe it's the most critical of our work every single day with children, and that is to be sure that we provide highly qualified teachers and programs and services in order that all children can be successful. So when we talk about competencies, we're trying to get at the idea of what is needed, what will be needed to be sure that a kindergarten child or a middle school student or a senior graduating from high school will be able to compete successfully as they move through the grades, as they're able to learn successfully, and to prepare them for whatever future will take them as they move out of our schools. So we need to ask the question, what do our students need? And I know tonight the administrative team will be talking very much about that in terms of how do we maximize the competencies for every child here in the North Reading Public Schools. So again, in summary, three themes: restoring cuts, dealing with and addressing compliance issues, and maximizing student competencies will be a repeating theme throughout this evening and the budget development.
Thank you, David. Again, I remind the audience, as soon as we're through with all of the questions to the administrators, at the conclusion of that, you're free to ask questions. You can do that either by filling out the yellow questionnaire and submitting it to me, and I'll ask the question, or you're more than welcome to stand up, be recognized, and you can ask the question yourself as long as you come up to the microphone. So, all right, this time we're going to move on to the first question, and I'd remind all the panelists that if the question is not directed at you and you want to give an answer, just raise your hand and you'll be recognized and you'll have the opportunity. First question is directed to John Bernard, the principal at the high school, and Dick Hodges, the principal at the middle school. And it's concerns with class size, and it's always an issue with the school department and certainly with the community. And I'm asking, what are the consequences of class sizes that approach or exceed 30 students? And John, if you want to take that first.
Sure, thank you. I think to go to Dr. Troughton's three main points of restoring cuts, competency issues, and compliance issues, I'd like to talk first about the implications that there are for maximizing the learning competencies of students when class sizes do exceed 30. We right now at the high school have 36 core sections that are either at or over 30 students in those sections, and there are a whole host of other classes that are in the high 20s, but in answering your question, at 30, certainly there are a few implications that I think are worthy of noting, and the first would be that the individualized instruction that teachers are able to give to students is certainly limited. There is less individualized instruction and personalized instruction. At the high school, there are some physical plant issues that are impacted by large numbers of students in a class. There are some classrooms that just, because of the physical square footage of the room, don't make it conducive to good learning when there are 25, 28, 30, 32 students in a class. Dr. Troughton also mentioned about compliance issues, and I'd like to just maybe take a moment quickly to highlight what in fact the accreditation report is, who NEASC is, and what role they play in helping schools to be better. In May of 2003, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges visited North Reading High School and essentially did an independent evaluation where they noted a number of issues that need to be addressed, some of them in relatively short time, that is within a 6-month period, and others within a 2-year period. Specifically, and there's a slide, Kyle, is the slide up for NEASC? What I did was, in anticipation of some of the questions that we might receive tonight around financing, I selected recommendations that they made. There are